This conference will now be recorded.
It's Tuesday, November 26th, 2024. Welcome to the AnCan virtual support meeting for high risk, recurrent and advanced prostate cancer. Thank you all for joining. I'm moderator Ben Nathanson, and I'm joined by moderators Len Sierra, John Antonucci, and Rick Davis, the founder of AnCan. As usual, you'll hear medical issues discussed, but there is no medical advice on this call. Funding for the meeting comes in part from these sponsoring companies, whom we thank. We thank Bayer, Novartis, Johnson & Johnson, Myriad Genetics, Telix, and Blue Earth Diagnostics. So, no new guys. Start with Mark Valens.
Ooh, can we just do a
I'm sorry. Rick wanted to put in a public service
quick
announcement.
plug, Mr. V, and then we'll come right back to you.
A PSA, as it were.
A PSA, yes, a PSA. And this is as much for the people who listen to the recording, which usually numbers between 200 and 300 people. So a lot of people we don't see. But please, if you would, complete the survey. It's taking about 7 minutes. The survey link will be both in the chat and at the very top on YouTube, so you'll find it there. We're doing this survey for two reasons. One is to get feedback. We haven't done one for about 4 years, and to see how we can improve the meetings, if there's a feasible way to make meetings any better. And then the other reason is because for academic purposes, we will analyze the data and see what sort of benefit these meetings are creating. And it'll be interesting to see if we see differences between some of the condition groups that we run. And we may well do that. So encourage you to complete it. So thank you very much. I'll turn it back to Mr. Valens in San Francisco.
One question, Rick. Do you like my background now? Who is that I'm with?
Wait a minute. Where are you? I can't see where you've got. Where have you
Larry,
gone?
under the name Larry.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
Who is my guest at my graduation?
Well, it's not Michael Jordan. No, it's too short. Who are you with? I don't know. Give us a clue.
It's currently the mayor of New York, but he used to be the Brooklyn borough president.
Oh, Eric, that's why I didn't know. Eric Andrews. Eric, what's his last name? Adams. I knew it was an A. Oh, I'm very impressed.
So you can put a background.
You're not under indictment, are you, Larry?
No, but I'll be resigning soon. I liked him as the borough president, Brooklyn borough president. I don't want to talk about him as mayor.
For sure.
So,
Okay.
You never
Mark,
know.
back to you.
Yeah. Well, the last 3 weeks have been the most intense time of my 5.5 years with prostate cancer. And the cancer recurred, and I've got extensive mets all up and down my spine and in other places too. And just having to jump into full speed. A lot of you guys have had chemo. Now I've had my first experience with it. A lot of you guys have had bone mets radiated. I've had a few, and then next week Mac Roach is going to do high intensity, first SBRT and then IMRT, all up and down my spine and the base of my skull. And we should all know how great Rick is. He is really, he's turned me on to some really good doctors. He's let me know what the different scans mean. So I now have a new GU medical oncologist, Dr. Rahul Agarwal at UCSF, and he is fantastic. Met with him yesterday. And so it's a lot. And the, I had my first chemo, 12 days ago. And for over a week, it's like, oh, this doesn't bother me a bit. And then I found out it takes a little while. So I'm going through all that stuff. And I don't know, whatever, the next 6 months or 12 months, it's going to be hard. But having this group and having this much talent and knowledge on your side really helps. So I'll keep bringing you updates after all the radiation, after a couple more chemo things. Hopefully I'll be doing better. Just that one chemo took away my really horrible headache, so that's a step forward. Hopefully the chemo can do something about the pain, my back pain. But I'm doing all right. I've got a great wife. I've got great friends and siblings, and then I got you guys and Rick. You've been just wonderful and guiding me in the right direction. So I'm doing okay. Thanks.
Yeah, I want to just fill the group in just a little bit on Mark's situation, because as his nurse practitioner at UCSF said, he's a zebra unicorn. Or was it a unicorn zebra? So the reason is because Mark's disease has always been very strange, and he doesn't produce a lot of PSA. At the same time, when he recently did, and you may recall this because we discussed it in the group a couple of weeks ago, when he recently did a PSMA test, he was very PSA avid, and we know that when you start to show a lot of small cell morphing, you tend to be less PSA avid. But he was very, very PSA avid, so he certainly has plenty of adenocarcinoma, and yet there may well be something else going on. And that was one of the reasons why we thought it was a good idea to navigate Mark to Dr. Agarwal, because in our view, Dr. Agarwal and Dr. Beltran are probably the two best doctors for small cell neuroendocrine in the country, one on the East Coast and one on the West Coast. And there are others who are good, but both of them are just outstanding. And so Mark's in the best place. And interestingly, Mark sent me a note, and yesterday when he saw Dr. Rahul asked him, he said, look, see if you can find a MET that is not lighting up on the PSMA scan, so that we can biopsy it and try and see what's going on, and also do an NGS and analyze it on an NGS. So we're going to do that next time Mark does a PSA. Hope.
Well, Rick disappeared, but anyways, we got a plan. We're going to keep learning as much as we can. And Dr. Agarwal is he's fully on board. And he said, I've got a good med onc up in Oregon, but she doesn't do GU stuff, but she's really good. And Dr. Agarwal said, have her call me anytime. I'll partner with her on anything she needs help with. And I feel like I got a good team.
That's really great. And hopefully the radiation might help your pain also.
I hope so too.
That would be great.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah.
Mark.
Yes.
Your attitude is 100% better than maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. So just as a compliment, you're really doing great.
Well, the more information I get, then I know how to handle things. When it sort of hit me all brand new, it's like I didn't know what was happening. But okay, that's it.
Yeah, thank you for the update, Mark. You, you you do sound like you're in the right place at the right time. Agarwal. I'm glad you like Agarwal. I certainly have seen his papers and he's amazing. So next up is Jack. You had what purported to be a quick question.
Very quick. Okay, as you all know, you may know, that my medical oncologist put me into a study where I had my blood drawn a couple of weeks ago with Foundation Medicine, something called a liquid CDX. I don't know if anybody in this group has ever had one of those drawn. I investigated today actually with Dr. Galusic what exactly does that entail, what results, what will I be looking at? He said CCA 550, and he assumed I knew what that was. I had no idea. I looked it up. It said a canonical correlation analysis to discuss the genetic alterations, and it includes total mutational burden, MSI, and tumor fragments. The thing that's been approved by the FDA is the 550 mutations they are going to be looking at for. The thing it doesn't, what they're putting on trial for, is whether or not it has any validity for tumor mutational burden, MSI, and tumor fragments. It's a lot of information. At first, I said, gee, sure, I'd like to have this stuff available. I threw it out there, and Jim Marshall said he'd love to have all of that information. It was made available, the more the better. And I thought that, yeah, it makes sense, but a part of me is kind of anxious about that because it's a lot of 1.5 years. I know it's relatively short compared to a lot of you guys of an assault on my cancer, and I may very well show up with some mutations, and I'm kind of a bit frightened of what's going to show up with 550 possibilities. And so I just want to throw it out there. If any of you know much about this CCA 550, and is that how you found out how many mutations you had when you found out what you found out? Any high mutational person out there who had a foundation, who had a foundation medicine liquid?
Jack, did you ask them how many of these 550 are actually actionable mutations?
I did not. I just asked him what it entails, and he emailed me back today and just said CCA 550 plus the TMB, MSI, and tumor fragments.
Why don't you ask them how many?
Well, he's a busy guy. I just got that information today. I'm not going to see him for a while. I may call Foundation One and find out what they can tell me.
Okay, so the Foundation Medicine panel used to be about 320 something, 329. I don't know what it is right now. But I think Dr. Jeff's point is very well taken. There are bigger panels. There's always been bigger panels. The biggest one was the Dream Team one that I knew of, which Dream Team West and Dream Team East, which was well over 500. I think the MSKCC one is a lot bigger. But they're not that relevant because, like Dr. Jeff says, they're not that actionable and they're too esoteric. So my feeling is that if and I don't think Tempest is that much big. It might be. I think Tempest might be a little bit bigger than FMI. But I wouldn't be concerned about getting yourself involved with bigger panels because the commercial tests are going to tell you everything that's actionable. Now, I don't know why Belusi. I missed again. I'm sorry. My internet's really playing up, so I'm going to be in and out a bit. But I missed the beginning of this. But my 2 cents is go with what's commercial because that's what's going to be relevant. If they want a bigger panel for academic purposes, like you're on a trial right now, that's a whole different ball game. But it's not relevant to most of us.
Okay, well, I've gone through this testing, liquid Sloan Kettering, and they have a test like that they gave me initially, and there were so many non-actionable ones that came out, and all of mine were non-actionable, and it was a huge list of genes that none of which I heard of, mutations. So I guess I'm hoping, that minimal shows up. I don't know if people would hope for more so they can get Keytruda or, one of those, drugs that potentially could give you a cure, like the fellow on that was presented the other night, who ended up with Keytruda, and he ended up getting an essential cure. So it's rare, I guess, to get that kind of result, but it's nice to hear it's a possibility. Any other thoughts? Otherwise, I'm fine.
I get curious about that kind of thing too, because in my family there's 3 brothers, and all 3 of us have prostate cancer, but the um, germline tests are all completely clear.
Yeah.
So what's that mean? Seems like there's got to be something unknown, and I suppose I'm just so curious. It's just a question for the future, I guess.
I have the same thing, John. My father had prostate cancer, and I have no germline mutations. So did
Yeah.
I just screw myself up somewhere down the line by, all the abuses in my life that I epigenetically screwed up my DNA? That's the only thing I could assume, because I can't blame him unless there's
Todd,
something unknown.
Morgan gave a webinar on genetic testing, and so there's this individual gene testing. There's polygenic risk scores where they have a weighted um, sum of multiple genes that in combination increase risk, where it's not a single gene, but multiple genes. Um, but that's still not enough. And then they weigh in whether you have a family history. So, even the state of the art is insufficient to detect your to fully detect your risk. Even after all the genetic testing, they still have to weigh in whether you have a family history if everything else is negative. I was I was unimpressed. Julian, you have your hand up?
Yes, I'm kind of in the same boat you were, Jack, at least up to the point where my dad had prostate cancer at my age at about 65, and he had pellets put in him, but I did, radiation therapy, and I joke with people that my dad lived to be almost 90, and that he died a young man.
John, in your case, I wonder if it's something in the environment where all 3 of you, your brothers, were raised obviously in the same um, environment. Maybe something in the water, or God knows what.
Red sauce and olive oil.
That's supposed to be good.
Yeah, all right. They're both supposed to be good for you.
My father died from it. My brother has it, and I have it. I'm the only one that's BRCA2, but it's probably increased my odds of getting it.
Was your germline positive, Jeff?
I was from my mother's side.
So, Jack, have we answered what you came to find out?
Yeah, essentially. Yeah, what can you say? I mean, I'll tell you when I get the results. We'll talk some
Yeah.
more. Yeah.
Do, do, do,
Thank you.
do.
Thank you.
So next is Dr. Jeff.
Um, Excuse me, Ben.
Yeah.
I
Was
would
your
like to
hand up? I'm
chime in
sorry.
here.
I keep doing that to you, Jeff. I'm sorry.
Like to chime in. Within our the veterans group, anyway, I have probably about 3/4 of the guys have prostate cancer. Okay, and the way that they need to get service connection is to have a link to it. Well, the guys who are and the guys exposed to the burn pits, Agent Orange, it is easy to do. But what about the guys who are over here never exposed? Well, the thing anyway I've been finding is a link to exposure to then toxic materials, TCEs, PCBs, and all kinds of the chemicals. So I don't know if that could have caused a civilian, because I don't know in the civilian world if there is a lot of toxic materials, especially in the soil, goes down to the drinking water and now is consumed. I don't know, but it's an interesting coincidence.
Those
The
PCBs are all,
pesticides in the civilian world seem to be linked.
Oh, yeah. So uh, let's say one case, if you live around essentially an airport, the foam that they used is toxic, the one they used for years. PCBs within and where the transformers for years and years and years were around. Okay, at the time that they salvaged them, all they did was to dump out the PCBs essentially on the ground. They also sprayed them on the roads for dust. And so they finally started to recognize that within the 90s, and they started to clean them up. But there are still many hundreds to thousands of EPA toxic sites around the country.
If you live anywhere near a dry cleaning store, you're in trouble. I was just reading an article on the trichloroethylene or whatever it is that they have, and a lot of people in New York live on the second floor, and the dry cleaning is on the first floor, and you can go in a dry cleaning store, you can smell it as soon as you go in there. I never have any dry cleaning done anymore. I live in Florida now. Everything goes in the laundry, but dry cleaning.
Got to run a little while.
Rick, you have your hand up?
Unmute.
I do, but I want to defer to Joel because Joel had his hand up before I did, and then he took it down. What was on your mind, Joel? You're muted too. You have to unmute.
Came in late and I didn't get the original question, but it was interesting because I just talked to Dr. E yesterday, and both my grandfather and father died of prostate cancer. My mother died of ovarian cancer, and she is now telling me that my MUTH and my germline test is what's driving my cancer. She says, she said the MUTH is the driver. I said, what do you mean by the driver? She said, I said, isn't that colon cancer? And she said, yeah, it's colon cancer, but it's driving your prostate cancer. So, I had never heard that before, so I just thought I'd bring it up.
How did she figure out? That what the driver is? That I've never known how you do that.
Yeah, I had never heard that either before, but she I know I'm too late to brief you guys tonight, but she gave me a Tempest scan and a DEXA scan and a PSA and testosterone test. And from the Tempest, she found a lot of TP53, many instances of TP53. And she says, you definitely have cancer, but she says, I don't know where it is. And I'm not even sure if it's all prostate cancer. You may have colon cancer and or other cancers, because she says that the Tempest test checks for ctDNA, and ctDNA just tells me you have cancer in your body. And so she says, when you come to my place in February, next February, I'm going to give you, even though you had one a year ago, I'm going to give you an endoscopy and colonoscopy all over again, and then she's going to give me another full body MRI. So she's figured it out. That's why she was, if you remember my telling you, she was hesitant when I talked to her back in September to take me off of darolutamide and Orgovyx, and now she's put me back on darolutamide. She's going to leave me off of Orgovyx till February. So she is after the cancer, regardless of what it is. She wants to control it before it flares up again. So that's the short of it.
What I was going to say is go back to our November 9th reminder. And I mentioned an article that was published recently in Cancer, which is the American Cancer Society's academic journal, drawing links between pesticides and prostate cancer. So you'll find a link to that article. I may be able to put it in the chat too. And then Howard Walensky, in his active surveiller, he just wrote something up on the same article that draws connections between pesticides and prostate cancer.
That word driver was used by my team also, and I said, you mean it caused the problem? And they said, no, that the somatic mutation is the cancer.
Ben, this is sort of in your bailiwick here. I mean, man, you know about drivers and lesser mutations and all of this. What can you tell us about driver mutations? We can't hear you. We just lost you. You're on. I don't know what's going on.
Frozen.
No, he's not frozen. His video is fine.
No. No good. No, we just lost you completely.
Lost your audio.
Lost your audio. Yeah, he knows. Anybody else have anyone else have anything to tell us on driver mutations?
Because this is so confusing and there's so many mutations and I couldn't keep them straight, I made myself a handy list of mutations. Len has looked at it for me. If anybody wants to look at it, write to me and I'll show it to you. And if you have any modifications or suggestions, let me know.
How many do you have in it?
Couple dozen.
That was a very good list.
Thank you.
And some people were asking what was the mutation that Joel had. It was MUTH, which is more often associated with colon cancer. Can we hear Ben yet?
That's MUYTH according to the web.
MUYTH. Okay.
If you look for MUTH, it'll take you to MUY.
Okay. All right. Are we still without Ben? Say something, Ben. No, we can't hear you, man. We can't hear you. You may need to go out and come back in again. The old go out and come back in. The problem is we don't know who's next up. Dr. Jeff has his hand up. Go on, Dr. Jeff. Take over and Ben.
No, I was next. So.
Oh, you were next. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's good. You go and Ben, go out and come back in again, or try some fixing, and when you come back in, we want to hear about driver mutations. By the way, you're not getting out of that one, okay? Go ahead, Dr. Jeff.
Yeah. So I got 2 letters from my insurance company on the same day. The first letter said, after extensive review, we made a decision about coverage for the following healthcare services for you. Remember, we use nationally recognized clinical guidelines and resources to arrive at our conclusions. Coverage for your Lupron Depot 3-month shots have been approved. Then I got a second letter, same day, and it says, we reviewed information received about your condition of cancer. We used the clinical policy bulletin. We are discussing your use of Prolia. Based on CPB criteria information we have, we are denying your coverage for Prolia. The reason is we deny your request because you are not taking a drug. You are not taking this drug while receiving androgen deprivation therapy. Okay? I'm getting Lupron, but they're denying Prolia because I'm not on ADT. That's got to be the most genius interpretation I ever heard.
I like that they came on the same day too.
Same day, 2 letters. Yeah. Of course, I called them and I said, what do you think Lupron is? And the person I spoke to had no idea. They said it's an injection. It's an injection. I said, correct. It's an injection for androgen deprivation therapy. Well, we'll review it. We'll get back to you. Right. Blah, blah, blah. I haven't heard back. I just thought I'd mention that this is a major insurance company.
So I'm assuming you haven't heard back from them yet.
No, this is 2 weeks ago.
Oh, 2 weeks ago.
Right.
Okay. And when's your Lupron shot due?
Lupron was approved. I get it next week, 2 weeks. Prolia, I get in another 3 months. So I have 3 months for them.
Oh, you have 3 months to sort it out. No problem.
Yeah. This is what we're up against.
Yes.
Ignorance.
Yes.
Yeah. They control our healthcare and what gets paid for, what gets approved, what doesn't get approved.
Okay.
Pretty scary stuff.
Oh, man.
You'd think they'd be more careful with an MD.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
That's it. Thanks.
Maybe they're trying to see if you're awake, if you're really.
Dr. Jeff. Dr. Jeff.
Yes.
Jim here. Had the same thing with them with the VA. Okay. As Rich knows, Butch from West Virginia. He happened to taken a claim claiming he was on the ADT Lupron. Apparently on some list, the name Lupron doesn't appear. Eligard appears and the generic name for Lupron exists. But so the VA checked that and they denied the fact, or they did not believe he was on then, ADT. So at advice of mine, he went back in specified the generic name for it, and it flew past no problems. So it's just something which I found a little odd, but if that's the way the game is played, you play the game.
I'll call them again. I'll use the generic.
In the VA, brand names are never even whispered in the hallways. It's all generic names, and so I assume the whole government's like that.
That's a good that's a helpful point for Captain Jim there. So that's a real helpful point. Steve Rue, you have your hand up.
The question just begs to be asked, Dr. Jeff, who is your insurance provider?
Who is the provider?
Yeah,
No.
okay, thank you. All I need to know.
It's interesting, Jeff, because I've got to reset my insurance, and my guy is pushing Aetna. My insurance guy is pushing Aetna. I'm not sure it sounds like such a good idea. I've been with Humana, but but I have to switch because they're stopping my policy, and they're saying Aetna. Jimmy
You're
has
still
his hand
gonna
up.
go with, you're still gonna use Medicare Advantage then, Rick?
I haven't decided which way I'm
Oh,
going. Um,
sorry
uh,
for interrupting.
that's okay. That's okay. Ben, can we hear you first of all?
I think you can now. Yes?
Yes,
Yeah.
Yes.
we can hear
Okay.
you. Okay, I'll let you call on Jimmy then.
Indeed. Jimmy, go forth.
Welcome back, man.
Thank you,
Uh,
Jeff.
when I was to get my biopsy after I got diagnosed, the urologist told me insurance won't pay for the MRI to guide this biopsy. I can almost guarantee you. But if they do, you should pay for it out of your pocket if you can, because that's how important it is. I had hoped that maybe they would approve it, and they sent a nice 3-page letter with very detailed explanation of why they would not approve the MRI for the biopsy. This was in 2019. So, since then, I think it's all pretty much understood that the value of a blind, relatively blind trust biopsy versus the MRI guided, especially when it was first around, was a huge, huge difference. In my case, of course, like a lot of guys, he was able to see the lesion and target that lesion. Otherwise, he may have missed it. So the explanation they give, I won't get into. Let's just say it made about as much sense as you were given in your case. 0.
So, Ben, can we hear from you on driver mutations, please?
I'm not familiar with the driver mutation, right? There are driver mutations and passenger mutations.
Right.
So drivers are the ones that cause cancer. Passenger mutations are just ones that happen to be mutated because cancer is a disease of mutations.
Mhm.
I have not heard of a single, the driver mutation is like the prime mover of the cancer.
Mhm. Mhm.
There's lots of oncogenes, right?
And tumor suppressors. In fact, there are even more.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Well, we're hopeful that Dr. E is going to do a webinar or a session with us in December. Well, I just have to get it sorted out. I'm not sure. It might well be before one of our meetings. Got to see what works. And so that's a question we want to be asking her, I think, about driver mutations.
I
So,
asked Dr. O that about a year ago, and he
yeah.
said we don't know what is driving, which mutation is driving the cancer. I don't know if things have changed in the past year, but that was his opinion at the time.
Okay. Interesting. Very interesting. So, um,
is that it for you, Dr. Jeff? I'm sorry, I missed out on part of the. Okay.
This
Okay,
group,
next.
by the way,
Oh,
meets on Christmas Eve according to December schedule. Have we worked? Just something for Rick to think about, I guess. That the third Tuesday, I mean the fourth Tuesday is Christmas Eve.
Most likely we will push that meeting. I haven't thought about it. Thanks for the heads up. But most likely we will push that. If we don't have a webinar, probably we'll push it to the 30th. 31st is
New Year's Eve.
New Year's Eve, so we don't really want to do that. So most likely we'll go to the 30th, but I'm not sure. I'll watch this space. We'll keep you posted.
On my birthday. Nice. I love it.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Open for other suggestions, but that's likely, the problem, of course, is we have a lot of, we may have the 26th, Boxing Day. Boxing Day is another possibility because the room is open, I know, on that Thursday. That used to be Captain Jim's date, and we have the room open, so we might move it to Thursday. But we'll let you know in good time. I'll talk to Miss Alexa and tell you.
Yeah. I know why, Rick, because nobody wants to dress up like Santa Claus on Christmas Eve.
Who do we have? Who do we have that has a big white beard? Do we have anybody? Does anybody ever come on here with a big? I don't know if we got anybody with a big
I
white
can
beard.
I can let this grow out a ways.
Okay.
If you could do that, because that's my group that night, Steve. If you could put an appearance and grow your beard out.
All right. And I just put the pesticide link in the chat window for anybody who wants to pull it up and read it later.
okay. On to you, Doug.
Well, my update is just about some progress toward getting an appointment. I'm trying to get to an oncologist from a system that won't provide one for me. And I had an appointment for March 3rd, and today I managed to go to a different VA, Hillsborough VA instead of Portland VA. And I was able to get an appointment for December 31st. So I think I'm on a better road than I was on. And I thank you very much, Rick and Jim and Bing.
An appointment with who on the 31st, Doug?
Yeah.
That'll be my first PCP appointment with the VA.
A PCP. Okay, first, yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to get connected with him so that I can work my way up the line to see Dr. Graff.
Dear Marshall, what say you?
Doug, a question for you, because last time I heard you were going to get a PCP through the community care. Is that not on the table, or is that off the table and this is a real VA doc? I'm curious.
I believe this is a real VA doc, although I don't have a name for this doc. I should have asked for that when I got the appointment, but
okay.
I have canceled my community care.
Okay, how about to keep me posted on the path you have to take from the PCP? Do you have to go through urology to get to the oncology, or can you go straight from the PCP straight to the oncologist? I would be very interested in that.
I'm pretty sure in the past with other people we've navigated, you have to go through the urologist. The urologist has to refer you to the GU medical oncologist. You can't skip out the middle person. Now, the only good thing for you, Doug, is maybe you can get the urologist to order the PSMA. That's a possibility. The other thing is, you might want to just stick with the community care option because you may be able to get you may be able to bring it forward 2 weeks ahead of that. I mean, it's up to you, but we want this PSMA. But I was thinking, this was on my mind because, as you know, we've been trying to figure out how to shortcut to get to Julie Graff. But Mike Crosby says you got to go through all of the motions. So, where's your last PSA was 0.74. Has your PSA moved up at all?
The last one I had was just before a previous meeting, so I don't have one for another couple of months. My next one I think will be late January. A 3-month schedule.
I would ask them for a quicker one. They'll give it to you. The 3-month schedule is all well and good, but you're moving. You got to don't let this. Don't let any. What's the expression? Don't let any.
Water under the dam.
That's it. Don't let any water. Thank you, Steve Rue. Don't let. I would ask for one and get one this week. I mean, what if you're at 1.2 at this point in time? Maybe Kaiser will say, "Oh, okay, we'll do a PSMA." I don't know, but the fact is, you need a PSMA test sooner rather than later. So any avenue we can get, whether it's through the VA, whether it's through KP, and then eventually we'll get you to a good GU med onc through the VA. But in the meantime, we got to get you a PSMA test. So tell them you want a PSA. You want a PSA doing right away.
Okay, I have asked for the PSMA from the urologist, and that wasn't going anywhere. But I have not asked for a PSA.
Doug, the thing that you can do is to claim anxiety. Your feelings are very unstable. You have a hard time sleeping. You are constantly think about. Today, I believe in the medical world, feelings count just like in the government.
I will try that.
It's another quiver in your
arrow in your quiver.
I'm a little concerned that both Dr. Jack and Dr. Jeff, especially with Dr. Jack, have stepped away from the camera when we start talking about feelings. Thank God Dr. John is still there.
They have no feelings.
Actually, I didn't understand what you were telling me about community care being quicker, because I now have an appointment for December 31st with the VA.
So community care is supposed to get you an appointment within 3 weeks, I think. Isn't that right, Jim? Wasn't that the whole point of the community care?
Well, I have the things from Bing explaining all that, and I am going to post them, but I really haven't digested them yet. But they'll be posted within the December 3rd reminder, I think it is, or December 5th. Doug, I will send those to you. They are excellent descriptions of what are the rules for community care.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So go through them, Doug. And if it seems like we can halve the time and we could get you an appointment by mid-December, I would say it's worth doing, because then you can ask for a Euro appointment. But I don't just let time pass, because you should have been scanned ages ago.
Right.
And we want to nail this. We want to nip this in the bud. And so it's really important somehow or other to get a PSMA test if Kaiser's being recalcitrant, as they are.
No, and I have some experience. A fellow that I became acquainted with when I started all this went through it 2 or 3 years before I did. And a couple of years ago, he came through and said, well, I'm having a PSA rise. And he came through later and said, well, it turned out to be a bump. And then just about a month ago, he found out he had recurrent, and he went in for brachytherapy. So yeah, it's the same. Mine kind of looks at the moment like it's peaking out, but I can see where that leads.
When I was at Kaiser, they were testing my PSA every month.
Yes. Yes.
And,
Yep.
and Dan says the same thing. They were testing my PSA and my testosterone when I was on the Lupron. But if you want them to test every month, they'll test every month. Tell them you want it tested every month, because that
Okay,
way you want to keep a real close eye on what's going on.
I will get that going today.
Doug, anyway, I've been tested every month for over 7 years.
At
How's your
Kaiser.
arm?
Yes, at Kaiser.
How's your arm?
It's examining.
Oh, how's the arm? You then ask for the hose, not the thing they plug in. There is a hose designed for babies. That's the one I get. I'm the biggest baby there is.
Okay.
Call it a butterfly, not a hose.
Oh,
Thank you for your help.
Thanks, Doug. Steve L., you are next.
Yes, hello. Um, I'll remind you where I am. I'm low volume metastatic castration resistant. Had a PSA last Friday at 0.74. It's sort of slowly working its way up since January. Fred Hutch has agreed to do a new PSMA and radiation therapy, so that's getting scheduled now. I had a platelet clumping problem. The previous two blood tests showed clumping, and so I got another one yesterday with a different preservative, citrate, and then again one with the same preservative. And my platelets are clumping regardless. The blood got special care this time, and it's still showing clumping. So I was wondering, everybody, if has anyone else dealt with platelet clumping who is undergoing cancer treatment?
Maybe you've got the same bad phlebotomist who didn't shake the tube properly.
Yeah, I talked to the phlebotomist yesterday before he did it, and he was, very careful because of what I told him. And so that's 3 different times, 4 tests in a row showing platelet clumping.
It's funny because you're on anticoagulants, but I guess that's a coincidence, right, guys?
And the platelet clumping started after I went off aspirin. I have no idea if that had any effect or not. But okay.
Aspirin's supposed to make your platelets less sticky.
Right. So I'm thinking maybe I should go back on aspirin.
Oh no, don't do that without a discussion.
Okay.
Or maybe they should do some clotting times on him.
Hopefully they'll figure it out. I just got the test yesterday, so I'll give them a little bit of time to get a plan going.
There's a test called bleeding time that's a little more functional kind of a test for platelets to see whether it's their fault or your blood's fault.
Yeah, that's what I'm wanting to determine. if it is my blood's fault.
Yeah, because you don't want to be hypercoagulable.
Yep. And then, I've been on abiraterone and Lupron since early 2022. I seem to be tolerating both okay. Um, I don't know if there's any thought that how long I might be on them or if I should promote a change. Uh,
Well, I would say you certainly can't take a drug holiday if your PSA is 0.7.
Right.
I guess you could try switching from Abi to enzalutamide. I don't know if that would make any difference,
okay.
but maybe talk to them about it.
Yeah, and it was briefly discussed, but I think they want to do one thing at a time and to see the effects. All right. Well, then, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Steve. And now on to Steve Rue.
Dr. Jeff has his hand
Oh,
up.
once again, I don't know. I'm so sorry. You should be the moderator. Okay, Jeff.
So, Steve, what is your platelet count?
Most recently, yeah, the most recent one was 165, but probably low because there was clumping.
What was the one before that?
Um,
It was also clumping, right?
yeah, it was also. Oh, actually, the most recent one was 195 with clumping. Before that, they were 93 with clumping and 77 with clumping, and before that 140 without clumping.
So, I've never seen a disease induced situation causing a differential slide that shows clumping. Clumping is usually the result of some mechanical or chemical issue, not a pathologic issue in your body. Someone's reading a slide and your platelets are sticking together. But we looked at, I can't even think of how many diffs I've read in my life, and it's usually not a pathogenic circumstance that you have to be worried, that you're going to bleed out somewhere.
Steve, did you have a venipuncture or a finger stick?
A venipuncture.
Okay.
Is your doctor at all concerned about this?
He was concerned enough to order the citrate test. He was only mildly concerned. I think he would have put it off till my next appointment. I asked him to do it right away.
I wouldn't be concerned.
Okay.
Thanks, Dr. Jeff.
Yes, thank you.
Steve Rue, I think it really is your turn now.
Okay, hello everybody. I just wanted to give a quick update. I met with my med oncologist today. That was Dr. Caleb Fadak. He was the protege for Dr. Heath down at the Carmenos Cancer Center in Detroit. So I'm seeing him now up here closer to where I live in Petoskey. We just kind of reviewed my blood work and everything and got ready for the Medicare switchover. He was very helpful with understanding that we should probably try to combine all my pharmaceuticals to come out of one specialty pharmacy or one unify that to make it easy. I thought that was really awesome of him. Our discussion was one of the discussions I had was about a new side effect that I just picked up. It's kind of a cognitive impairment. Uh, I'm not forgetting my own name or what day of the week it is, but it's really odd. It's sometimes I will be speaking a sentence and just simply cannot think of the word that goes next. And it was really crazy last week. I was talking to somebody about a recipe I do, and I couldn't think of the word sausage. So he said there's not a lot we can really do about that. He said I shouldn't be concerned at this time. He said most research shows that later down the road, when I get off of the Abbey and the Orgovix, that will probably go away. So we're gonna look to see if that worsens or when it might go away after I finish my treatment. We did discuss the conclusion of my treatment will be, I think, it was determined that was March of 2026. Um, so all things said and done, other than that, I'm pretty good to go. I've got enough meds to get me through the end of the year before Medicare. I did finally pick a good Medicare plan. I think it's good. It's not an Advantage plan. Uh, I got the G supplemental G plan or G whatever they call it. It's very generous with covering a lot of things. So pretty happy with that. So everything's looking good going into the end of the year for me, and I'll keep you posted if there's any other changes.
Steve, this is John. Just remind me, you were just diagnosed this year, isn't that right?
No, no, no. You asked me that once before, John.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Last week.
But when you said
Diagnosed.
2026, I thought, well, that's 2 years from this year, so maybe he was diagnosed this year. So straighten me out, yeah.
Oh, okay. So the whole story is, the whole history is that
I'm
I was
sorry.
diagnosed. You're fine. You know, it's a little confusing for me too. So the diagnosis, I was diagnosed um, late in 2021,
Okay.
and the med oncologist, after I had the high dose radiation HDR brachia, the med oncologist was putting me on Lupron and only Lupron. There was a discussion here in this group, and Rick had mentioned that I should be, and some of you mentioned I should maybe be on a duplet therapy. And I wasn't really happy with Dr. Kohler, so there was a name thrown out there, Dr. Heath down in Detroit, and I went to see her, and she said, "Yeah, buddy, you should be taking the Abby with the ADT." So we went, she switched me to Orgovix because the Lupron was seriously clobbering me with serious fatigue, tidal wave stuff. Um, and so she said we should just probably start you back on a 2 year. That was March of uh, this uh, year, where she said we're going to put you on a duplet and do what you should have probably been. You should have been getting that standard of care already this whole time. So
Mm,
after almost like a year, almost 9 months to a year of Lupron, I finally got a duplet therapy, and so that's why when you do the math and you're looking at 26, it seems like it's 3 years out, and it's not. It'll be 2 years of the duplet therapy.
I
The,
see. Okay.
the okay,
And that's how they came up with 2026. Okay. Thank
right?
you.
Because she's yeah, her attitude was we should just start you fresh. That was March of you know of 24. She said we just should start you like this was brand new. Make sure you
Okay.
get enough of the ADT and the abiraterone combo that you
Just
should have been getting.
started the clock all over again. Okay.
Yes, yes, that was her conclusion. But yeah, real happy with my insurance that I just got. Only time will tell, but it looks pretty generous. The Medigap G plan supplement. I'm not making a plug for ARP, but it is ARP United Healthcare, and it looks okay. It looks good. A lot of extras. That's all I got.
So you sounded real articulate tonight. Is there a particular, you didn't stumble. Is there a particular time of day when you have trouble?
Uh, it seems mostly in the afternoons, which is about the same time that fatigue overwhelms me. I start to sip on some energy drinks. Like I drink these Celsius drinks, which really kind of give me a little boost. Supposedly least harmful of the energy drinks. I don't know, maybe. Um, but yeah, I'll just be mid-sentence and I can't think of the word. It just, it's, I can see it in my mind, but I can't, but the word just doesn't hit. It's strange as hell. So,
Steve, let me put in my 2 cents on that. I have the exact same experience. 4:50 in the afternoon, every single day. I take the Orgovix at noon. 4:50, 5 o'clock. I have a dementia. I can't. I'm not articulate. I can't find the right words. I'm exhausted. I don't want to move. I have to really push to just get up and take a walk. And then I have something to eat, like around 6 or so, and I get my energy back, and I can think clearly, and I feel good again every single day. So there's something about. You take Orgovix also?
I do, but I usually wait and take that like after dinner in the evenings. And I take the
Oh,
Abby in the morning first thing on the empty stomach.
all right, all
I
right.
think
So
I don't know if
I
it's
have.
the Abby causing most of the problem or the Orgovix. I really wouldn't know.
Well, I know it's the Orgovix. All right, thank you. I just wanted to chime in on that. I'm eating, but thanks.
Well, thank you.
All right.
I mean, it is good that it's transient. And oh, Jeff Markey, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, I've had that problem for a couple of years at least. Being on Lupron for 7 years and Orgovit and Abby for 2.5. Brain fog, losing on here. Just about, I raised my hand and couldn't remember the words I was going to say. It's drives you nuts. You're talking along, and all of a sudden there's a name you want to use, somebody's name, a drug name, something, and it just won't come to you. It'll come to you later, but it won't come to you. That's so common. It's called brain fog.
Does anything help? Like I was told by my PCP that reading more and maybe working crossword puzzles, stuff like that might be helpful.
I do it
I don't
constantly. I'm just always reading something. It doesn't help. More testosterone would help.
Yep.
Jimmy
More
Greenfield?
exercise.
I bet that's what Jimmy's going to say.
What am I going to say? That testosterone solves all the problems?
Oh, no, exercise.
Exercise, yeah, exercise. It makes you not care about the problems as much. You still have them, but I was going to say that it's been a while since I've been testosterone suppressed, but I developed some things. I don't know if it's just aging or if it was. It all started though with Lupron, where I would do a particular thing, which I still do quite a lot of, is to say the exact opposite word of what I mean. If I say it's hot in here when it's cold, I say I got up early when I got up late. I do this all the time. Not all the time, but enough of the time. And then, of course, the other one is, somebody's name, something I was supposed to read. But the worst thing I have now is this simple not remembering where I put things. I set things down. I set keys down. I set a book down. I set a shirt down. And as soon as I set something down, it's over. I mean, I just can't live the same way I used to. I have to keep everything in its place. Mama used to say a place for everything and everything in its place. So I lived my whole life putting stuff all over the place, and then I just remember where it was and go back and get it. That ship has sailed, gentlemen. I don't know if any of you know what I'm talking about.
Well, I sometimes blame my wife for moving things. Maybe I should rethink that.
No. Yeah.
I mean, it is good that it's transient. You were able to navigate your way through a choice of. We have some hands up. Len?
Yeah, Jimmy. I mean, that happens to all of us, whether you have prostate cancer or not.
Oh, oh.
I'm hearing a couple of different
Larry's got his
voices
mic
there.
on. No, he doesn't. Not anymore. Okay.
Anyway, what I've heard is you put something down and you forget
Oh,
about. Larry,
hey, Larry.
Larry, mute, please. You put something down and you don't remember where you put it. That's it. I've heard them say it isn't that you forgot. It's just that you didn't even know you put it down there. If you put something, I'm putting my glasses on the computer table. Now you'll remember it. But if you just absentmindedly put them there while
Yeah.
you're trying to do something else, you'll forget.
Yeah,
Or
being mindful.
yeah,
I'm looking towards this, Lynn. Hey, honey, have you seen my phone?
that
This is where
works.
it's where
That's
it's
what I
going
do.
now.
So, Larry, your hand is up.
I just want to chime in. I mean, everybody knows these stories. Uh, I just have to account that I have I live off of lists and using my clock, which rings, and then I'm trying to remember. Oh yeah, because the water is boiling, or because I had an appointment, or I started something in the microwave, or I have something cooking on slow cooker, or I just keep using my alarm on my cell phone, which I always do remember to set. Um, I find it amazing that I'm still able to carry a full time job, theoretically full time job, and my staff. I mean, I'm always asking my staff, what's the agenda for today? What did I forget? When is the meeting? When is this? When is that? They're pretty understanding because I'm still functional. I find a lot of caffeine helps. Drink coffee in the morning, and then I drink coffee again before I go to work, and I drink tea at work, and then you get sharp. It's like that movie, Charlie, whatever the name of that movie is, where you come alive for like a number of hours during the day, and you're very functional. You're your old self, and then and then all of a sudden you're in a fog. You're trying to figure out where things are, walking, finding it amazing. You live in a two-bedroom apartment with 4 rooms, 5 rooms, and you can walk around and around that apartment looking for glasses or looking for a cell phone or trying to figure out what the alarm is for. It's really an experience. This is 7 years, 8 years into Lupron and darolutamide, and um, nothing you can really do. You study math, I study languages. You try to do all different kinds of things to stay active, and then boom, you click in, and you're alive again. You wake up, you eat something, you take your meds. You're really weird for an hour or two. An hour later, for a few hours, then you drink some more coffee and you get going. And once you get going, you're your old self again. Especially if you work out 3 to 5 times a week. That's the secret. Work out and be ready for those hours where you're really functional and really function. Push yourself to function. Accept the limitations. I'm enjoying life. What can I say? That's the solution for me. I don't know about everybody else.
Dr. Jeff, what do you say?
So I think age and androgen deprivation therapy will induce uh, memory loss, confusion. I don't think there's an escape from it. But one of the things I've been doing, because like all of you, I've had the same issues, when in order not to forget, I've been using my cell phone and taking pictures so that if I put something down, and I know I forget where I put it, I take a picture of where I put it. It's like when I park my car, my phone, there's a GPS that tells you where'd you park your car. But I also take a picture now of the row where my car is, or even on the street. I take a picture, and I find that obviously I'm not going to forget. I forget, but I'll look at the picture and then I'll say, oh, that's where your glasses are. That's where your wallet is. That's where your keys are. But I'm aware that these are the things I forget most often. Now, I haven't forgotten where I had my cell phone yet, because that could sabotage my whole plan.
Thanks, Dr. Jeff.
I want to add one more little thing. I don't know if anybody else does this, but all of my familiar pathways. I'm a musician and I have an absolute airtight memory for all music, even new music. I learn volumes of new music. I don't use any manuscripts or lead sheets unless it's really complicated music, and even sometimes if it is. And I can remember most of what I've ever learned. If I forget, I can bring it back really quickly. I never forget what I'm doing on stage. I'm sharp as can be in the familiar and what I care the most about. And that's why my wife gets mad at me, because she says, you didn't listen to what I said. And I said, I forget things, honey. She said, you don't forget the things you care about. I said, honey, I care about you deeply, but this is my passion existed for 50 years before I met you. But it's a terrible excuse.
You know,
Also,
it has
sorry, Jeff.
more to do with your anatomy than your passion. You know, Tony Bennett, he had total Alzheimer's. He did a concert with Lady Gaga when he was 95.
Mm-hmm.
All he could do, he remembers everything when it comes to music. There's something the way your brain is wired that makes music and songs and, you know, sort of like a permanent thing that's going to stick with you until the end. Other things will disappear. And, you know, fortunately, you love music. That'll always be with you. Temporal lobe has a way of embedding that permanently. Smells also.
Yeah. Okay, Dave Vanderels, what do you have tonight?
Hi, an update. I've been taking Lupron and abiraterone for 3 weeks. My PSA started out 132 and it's down to 8 last week. I'm tolerating it very well. I'm getting some coaching from Jim Marshall with some input from Rick, and they suggest I do a couple things right away. One was an NGS liquid biopsy, and so my medical oncologist is doing that. I don't have the results yet. They also suggest that they biopsy the lymph nodes. They really can't. The radiologist says they're the ones in the one in my pelvis is right next to a large blood vessel, and he doesn't want to go in and take it. Jim and Rick also suggested I see a GU oncologist. I've set that up. It's not something you can get, next week. So I'm seeing one in about 3 weeks. And Rick said to question her about triplet therapy instead of duplet, and he said ask her about treating the primary. So I'll do all that, and so far so good.
Jim Marshall, what say you?
Yes, David, anyway, who are you going to see? Is that
The one you
Jenny Fowler?
suggested, Dr. Pollard, the one you suggested.
Right. And how soon are you in? I'm just curious. I forget.
Christmas Eve was the.
Oh, that's right. Christmas
And I
Eve.
asked 10 days ago. That's the first they
Right.
could see.
And bring her something nice, according to Rick. And I forget if it was chocolates or something or other, but yes. Okay. I thank
All
you very
right.
much. Keep us posted.
Yeah, I'm not sure we ever did an intake for you, Dave, in this group. I know we talked about it in Jim's group, but have we ever spent some time with you in this group?
Yeah, yes, Rick. I first came 3 weeks ago and you spent 10 minutes with me. And that's when you said, be sure to, you said, you got to see
Yeah.
a GU oncologist. You got to ask about triplet therapy and treating the primary. And my medical
Yeah.
oncologist says we don't need to treat the primary, and the
Yes.
Lupron and the abiraterone are appropriate. And you said, well, you sure? And you mentioned Dr. Pollard too. And I said, yeah. You said, be sure and ask her about that. So on the 21st, I'll bring her chocolates and ask her those questions.
Okay. Or flowers. Flowers may be better than chocolates. They always like
Ours
flowers.
is chocolate's more subtle, I think.
Oh, um, I do remember that conversation, but I couldn't remember if it was in this group or if it was in Jim Marshall's veterans group.
It was this group.
Okay.
If she
All
takes
right.
offense, just say that they're Rick's idea.
Yes, that's exactly right.
And have her fill out a survey.
Definitely. Thanks, Ben.
So the last scheduled speaker is Dan from Alexandria.
Oh, yeah. Hi, guys. I saw my oncologist last Thursday. She was much more positive and upbeat than the first time I met her. She says my body's reacting or has reacted very well to the radiation therapy and the hormone therapy. She's going to do a somatic test on the biopsy, which she apologized for not doing already. And my PSA is down to 0.02. And next year, at the beginning of the year, we're going to do a new PSMA scan test to see the results of the radiation therapy. So she's saying, I tried to get her to change the dosage. She would not budge. And because it's Kaiser, she would not budge on Orgovix. That's the best that I could do on that. And she said, I'm going to be on hormone therapy for 2 years instead of 18 months. So that's my synopsis. Thanks for your support.
Jim Marshall, what's your response?
Dan, you said that you were trying to get her to change over the dosage from
Yeah.
what to what offhand?
The abiraterone from 4
Yeah.
pills down to 2. And she pulled up on the computer screen how it could be, but they only recommend that in rural areas where it's hard to get to a pharmacy. She said, you're not having that problem. And because the cost for abiraterone is nothing to me, she said, stick on it. Stay with the dosage she has. Do you
Oh,
challenge
okay. Okay.
Jeff Markey, what do you say?
Well, I'm with Kaiser and I'm on Orgovix and went from 4 to 3 on Abby. It didn't work. My PSA rose really fast, but that's me.
Yeah.
But I had no problem getting Orgovix.
Right. I think we talked about this before. San Francisco's a little bit more, if I can use the word progressive, and here in Washington, they're a little bit more conservative, watch every penny. So I think that's what's happening to Kaiser here. And then she asked for my evaluation because, as Jim Marshall knows, they farm out everything on the radiation to Virginia Hospital Center. And that's a whole different process, a lot of costs involved. And I don't want to get into all that, but it's over now for me. I just can't wait to see the results from the PSMA scan test.
You said you were going to get a PSMA scan with a 0.02?
No, we're gonna do one next year, but probably with 0.02, not much is going to show, but it's just a marker in time after the radiation therapy has been done.
How is your insurance going to manage to approve it if your blood
Well,
level, your PSA is so unpredictable?
With Kaiser, the MRIs and scans are usually $100 to me. It's going to be probably $130 next year.
Cool.
I'll pay that. you don't want to know the cost of what Kaiser's already picked up on the radiation therapy. So I'm kind of happy with this Advantage plan.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things, Jack. First of all, with Kaiser, it's not like you're going to an insurance provider. If the doctor says that we need it, you get it.
Right.
I mean, that's sort of the good side of it. The bad side of it is if it's sort of well beyond standard of care, you don't get it. But if this is what this doctor thinks, we're okay. You know, the problem that somebody like Dan has is that he can't get the Orgovyx because at Kaiser it's very hard to get Orgovyx. Notwithstanding, we managed to get it for Jeff in Washington D.C. in Kaiser. That's become pretty difficult. So it's just a different Kaiser's a different system.
Yeah.
Kaiser's a different system. But it sounds good. I mean, you know, you're doing okay. You're feeling okay. She's happy with you. It's got to get you through to the end. The 18 months versus 2 years. I'm not sure what turned her mind. It could have been 2 years in the first place. She could have said 2 years in the first place.
Right.
Probably the type of disease. I would have expected her to say 2 years, but she said 18 months. Now she's gone back to 2 years. Again, some of this is because these docs are not specialized in genitourinary cancers. And they sort of flip between whatever was the last thing they heard on a presentation.
Yeah, she followed up with, she mentioned maybe, I'm just guessing here, 10 patients she's got and how they're proceeding. So I'm thinking she's doing some research on this in addition to her normal medical work.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to thank everybody on is especially Jimmy, because he's told me that Rick is going to come out after and beat me up on my car, rip the windshield off if I don't do my exercise. So I'm getting a lot of running every day, and on the weekend I'm working out. So that's helping on situations that I feel a little bit better. And even though I get weary and fatigue, I just assume that that's part of age. I'm 76 years old, and everybody I know takes a little nap in the afternoon anyway. So you just got to fight it off. And I think Jimmy's on the call now. I think he's right on target. You just got to keep pushing yourself and get your heart rate up.
Weren't you having a lot of problems with hot flashes also, Dan?
I was. I don't seem to be now, maybe because the weather's turned and I work at home so I can strip down on the clothes. So if that
Okay.
happens, I'll also get a cup of tea or something, or a couple of ice water. It doesn't seem to be a big issue right now. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Dan. So I think I've called on everybody who asked for time. We have some time for late arrivals. Oh, Joel. Joel, what would you like to add?
Yeah, I was a late arrival, and I saw Dr. E yesterday, as I said before, and with a televisit from Texas to Virginia. And she had ordered for me a PSA testosterone blood test, a DEXA scan, a Tempest. The DEXA scan I took at the VA, which I had also taken at the VA last year. The PSA was undetectable. I've only been 28 days off of darolutamide and Orgovyx. Testosterone was at 17, so I'd gone up from less than 10 to 17. She said, according to my DEXA scan, I had lost 3 to 4% bone density because of ADT, and that was normal, but I'm not below the range yet. She found, as I said earlier, a bunch of TP53 ctDNA cells on my Tempest report. They sent Tempest sent a phlebotomist to my house, took my blood about 3 weeks ago, and then she had the results of the test already. And as I said earlier, ctDNA is present for cancer, but may not be only prostate cancer. It could be some other cancers also. MUTYH germline test, she says again, was my driver for my prostate cancer. So she put me back. She was concerned about a flare up in my cancer because I was coming off the 2 drugs. So she, as of last night, I'm back on darolutamide monotherapy. And she agreed to Orgovyx to see if my testosterone would recover more until February. And if it doesn't recover, she's going to put me back on Orgovyx. She does not expect my testosterone to go up much at all. She may want to put me on. Yeah, I said that. She does not know where the cancer is, but does not want it to flare up again, so she's keeping pressure on it with darolutamide. After I told her about my spleen, pancreas, liver, and gallbladder that were inflamed last year when I did an ultrasound of the VA to check for liver cysts, she told me not to resume the Mounjaro as she had told me back in September 3 months ago. So I have to go to Houston in February, where she's going to give me a blood test, a complete blood test, a whole body MRI again, a colonoscopy and endoscopy, and maybe some other scans that she's going to dream up between now and then. But she's intent on personalized care, and she wants to make sure she keeps ahead of the cancer, not vice versa. Any questions?
Why did she expect your PSA not to rise?
Just if I said PSA, I was in error. She's not expecting the testosterone to come back to rise much more.
I meant testosterone. I meant testosterone. Why did she think your testosterone wouldn't get too high? Or
she didn't say, but I'm assuming it's because of my age. I'll be 80 in a few days, and because of the long 2 years of treatment. But I'm just guessing here. I didn't really ask her that question. She just.
What was your baseline? What was your baseline testosterone 2 years ago?
330 or so.
It's not bad. I don't know. So she said if it goes above 17, she'll start you again on Orgovyx?
Well, she's like I was. I told her I was interested in, getting the testosterone back in my body so it could do what it's supposed to do in the body, repairing organs and so on. But she didn't seem that would work the way I'm planning it to work. So she says we'll take that issue up back in February. But the impression I got is she wanted to double down on the cancer treatment again and wanted me to take Orgovyx. She was willing to let me not have it not take it for 3 months, but she is intent on making sure she's ahead of the cancer. So I'm not like Len now. I'm on darolutamide monotherapy. Which I didn't think she would approve, because I asked her 2 years ago whether she would consider, maybe it wasn't 2 years ago. 2 years ago is when I first met her. About a year ago, I asked her if it was possible for me to be on darolutamide monotherapy, and she didn't seem to think much of that. But now she was okay with it, so she's learning also, I'm sure.
Right.
Any other questions? I hope that we get to see her in December.
So we have time for. I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. That's it.
Thanks, Joel. So we have time for some of the other late arrivals. Jimmy G, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I forgot what it was. Just kidding. No, I'm good. Thank you.
Bill, if you're still on the call, did you want to say something?
Um, Nothing medical, but I did want to say with Thanksgiving coming up, I'm really grateful for all of you guys and for this group. And thanks to Jeff Markey, who through the Mayo Clinic Connect group, that's how I found out about this group. So thank you, everyone.
It's a pleasure. We're happy. We're happy to support you, Bill. It's what we do, and we love doing it. And the more guys we can help, the better we feel.
I have learned so much. It's wonderful.
Thank you, Bill.
And I see Harry Spieler has his hand up, if I'm not mistaken.
You are not,
Yeah,
Harry?
thank you, Rick. I just had a quick question. I've been on a drug holiday now since March, and I recently had scans that I get every 6 months or so, and I usually get a CT scan and a whole body bone scan, and everything looked good. But I'm curious why my oncologist doesn't have me get a PSMA scan. I'm guessing maybe because my PSA is undetectable. Would that be the reason?
Sorry, I think Jim Marshall's phone went off just as you were asking the question. Please, could you repeat the question?
Oh, sure. I'm on a drug holiday, and when I'm on the holiday or not, I usually get a set of scans every 6 months or so, and I get a CT and a whole body bone scan, and I just had it recently, and everything looked good. But I'm curious why my oncologist doesn't do a PSMA scan. Would it be because my PSA is undetectable, or I'm guessing that's probably why, but I'm not sure.
Well, my guess is because your PSA is very low. I mean, if we knew that you had fairly burden, then I think that we might be doing a PSMA, but the doc is covering herself by doing the some sort of CT or FDG PET or whatever she's doing to make sure that there are no Mets. And do you need both a PSMA and some other type of scan to see if there's any metastasis? I don't know. Len, I mean, what do you think? We've just been talking offline about not relying solely on PSA, and in those conversations that went on in Lugano, most people were talking about scanning with a PSMA scan if you weren't totally relying on PSA. But I suppose you could use a different type of scan, right then?
Yeah, I meant to respond further to the email chain, Rick, citing Dr. Thomas Hope, radiation oncologist out of UCSF, very well respected. I remember about a year ago, he said, I don't believe bone scans, bone scintigraphy, technetium scans should be done anymore by anybody. They're pretty much useless in considering, the other alternatives we have today. Yeah, the PSMA PET scan, it's expensive. That's why they're not going to allow you to do that with an undetectable PSA, Harry. But I would talk to your doctor about, instead of next time you have a scan, instead of a bone scan, maybe a CT or an MRI scan would be better. Even which they will do. They're less expensive, and they will do that. Particularly the CT of chest, abdomen, pelvis. They'll do that even with an undetectable PSA, and it's likely to show more than a bone scan would.
Yeah, I did have
Conference
that.
that Rick referenced, they showed a bone scan of a patient, and I think maybe there were one or two lesions. If I can't quite recall, if anything, and then side by side the same patient with a PSMA PET scan, and there were probably hundreds of lesions all over the place. So that's it gives you an idea of how ineffective a bone scan is.
Yeah, I do get the CT scan and the bone scan each time. So,
Okay.
so they compare them to see if there's similar results or if one shows up something that the other one doesn't. But so I am getting both those every 6 months or so. But I was just curious if there's just a better scan or a more effective scan.
Harry, you
than
said
those.
you didn't say you're getting a bone scan. You said you were getting a total body MRI.
No, total bone scan, full
Oh, a bone scan. Oh, because the
nuclear
total body MRI seems to have
bone scan,
replaced.
and I get CT also.
Okay, I heard. I guess I heard what I wanted to hear. Evidently, from what I've heard, the total body MRI has replaced the bone scan.
What type of CT scan is that? Is it a CT scan with a contrast? What's the nature of the CT scan?
Yeah, it's with contrast. And
Okay,
then the
you don't
bone
know.
scan is with some nuclear. They also inject.
Oh,
I forget the name
iodine.
of it, but that's
Yeah,
like only 2 hours.
Yeah, that's the old-fashioned. I'm pretty sure that's the old-fashioned technetium 99. But the CT scan could be a bunch of different things depending on what they're using as a contrast.
It's usually an iodine scan.
I think it was iodine. They said.
And I guess my question to Len is, could they be using that CT scan in place of a PSMA? They didn't discuss that at the Lugano conference, but yeah, we know the bone scan doesn't do it, but what happens if they're using a CT scan instead of the PSMA scan, Len? You're muted right now.
Yeah, I'll just quote Thomas Hope again. He felt that a CT scan, with contrast, MRI scan would be a better alternative to the technetium 99 bone scan. He felt like there was no place for that anymore in today's scan technology.
Right. So, maybe Dr. H is saying, look, don't expect I'll see too much with his PSA, but just to cover my bases, we'll do the CT scan, and that's what she's done, Harry. That's what I would say. It's not like she's not scanning you. If she wasn't doing that, or she was just doing the bone scan, I think we'd have some concerns. Is the bone scan, is the PSMA scan as good as the CT scan that she's doing? That's above my pay grade. I don't know where it fits in, nor do I know where that CT scan fits in versus, say, an FDG PET. I mean, it could be she's doing an FDG PET. That could be what the CT scan is.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I was just curious. Well, thanks for the feedback.
Steve L., your hand's up. Oh, sorry.
I think the important thing to come back and tell us is to find out exactly what type of CT it is that she's doing, because that will help us, because she's a good doc and she's relying on it versus a PSMA, so we'd like to know what it is she's doing. And the bone scan isn't enough for her. I mean, I'm 90% sure she was sitting in the audience when Dana Rathkoff showed that slide where we saw a guy with almost no mets on the technetium and then, he lit up like a Christmas tree with the PSMA scan. So, she realizes the bone scan on its own ain't going to do it. But I'm just very curious to know what she does use, because that might help us gauging other men who can't get, like Doug DeFriend, for example, right now, where he can't get a PSMA scan.
Yeah, I'll check. I have an appointment in a couple of weeks, so I'll discuss with her.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Steve L.
Yes. Any thoughts between a PSMA MRI and a PSMA PET?
I don't know what a PSMA MRI is, Steve. I'm not sure
Well,
what
yeah, I
that
think
is.
he means they'll either do a PSMA PET CT or they'll do a PSMA PET MRI. And of course, whichever one they use, that's the anatomical locator of what you see on the PSMA PET scan. And presumably the MRI is superior to the CT, but it's expensive, and I think most docs or most insurance companies wouldn't approve of that, but they'll approve of the PSMA PET CT. But one or the other has to be done with the PSMA PET.
Right.
Yeah.
I
didn't know they were doing I didn't know they were doing PSMA MRIs. I asked that question to avoid radiation exposure. I said, could I possibly say they're not doing that? Do you actually know people who got a PSMA MRI, Len?
I personally don't know, but I've read about it.
Wow.
That some people do get them.
Oh.
They've done studies. Go ahead.
I was offered the choice, so I didn't know anything about the MRI though.
Let me explain why they need the MRI or the PET CT. If you or the CT, if you were listening carefully to Len, he said it's the locator. Because what happens is that these PET scans, PSMA PET scans, all they do is they light up where they see a lesion that expresses PSMA. But we don't know where exactly that is. So they've got to overlay it on a template of your body. So they can do that either with a CT scan, which is the cheap way to do it, and so it basically locates where those lesions are on your body, or they can do it a more expensive than MRI. I didn't realize they do it with an MRI, Len, but I mean, it makes perfect sense. But the PSMA scan without that it's going to be very hard to know exactly whether that spot's in your rib or if it's in a lymph node by your neck, for example. Does that make sense, guys?
Yep.
Jeff Markey.
Yeah, Harstark has had me get a CT with contrast and a bone scan in the last 3 weeks. She has at least once a year she wants a set of those. The CT, because they compare to the last one, and it shows anything changes. The bone scan, I'm going to talk to her about it not being worthwhile anymore, see what she has to say. But since I've been undetectable for 12 months, it's doing a PSMA PET. One of my last PET showed only one metastasis that's been zapped. It didn't make sense to do that. That's for sure.
They were able to distinguish between one that's been zapped and one that hasn't been zapped, and how did they do that?
Well, I'm just talking about the PSMA PET, but if with the CT scan, me being undetectable, they probably wouldn't see anything there, I would think.
Well, the CT scan, Jack, they like to have a comparator. They like to know what was the last CT scan you had, and then they can see that, oh, that spot was radiated. And so what we're looking at here is a sclerotic lesion that was previously treated. I know every time I've had a CT scan, they say, we want your last CT scan. We need a comparator that helps them decide if it's a new lesion or if it's an old, previously treated lesion.
And they
They
can tell
put
if it's been effectively treated versus just treated.
I guess maybe they figure, has it grown in size or has it shrunk? Not
do they
really.
do this? Do they do the same with the bone scans? Is there any correlation between the CT referring to the last one and the bone scan, or is it independent? Anybody know?
In my case, they cross-reference all of them. The bone scan to the last one, and they also cross-reference the bone scan to the CT to see if something showed up in one that didn't show up in another.
Interesting.
I know we're getting towards the end, so I just want to take a very quick moment just to mention something that's on my mind related to the loss of my buddy Al, which I wrote about in the reminder this week. And it relates to the fact that we seem to be in a medical environment where doctors are less willing to collaborate. And we actually discussed this in Men Speaking Freely. And Dr. Jack and Dr. John had views on it. When they were trained, they were taught to collaborate. And, a man was into the hospital. He's not been treated at that hospital, but he's been treated at another center of excellence for 5 years. And his doctor, where he's been admitted, doesn't take the time to reach out to the quarterback doctor who happens to be an expert in this man's cancer. Whether that's because he thinks he knows what he's doing, he doesn't need the help, I don't know. But to me, there's something missing in that picture. And as more than one person has said to me, there are aspects of what happened with Professor Herb, and there are. The doctors don't want to collaborate. Interestingly, I spoke to another medical professional, quite a bit younger than John and Jack, but a very, very good professional who's on our advisory board, and her response was, well, the doctors just don't have time to do it now. They're more pressured. In this particular case, the doctor here locally at the NCI hospital in Tucson said, well, have the family get the doctor at Mayo to call us. I mean, I think that's totally inappropriate. That's my own view. It's not up to the family to get in. He should be wanting to know, how's this guy being treated? What's the nature of his cancer? What's happened to him? He has the notes. He can access the notes. But what if the doctor at Mayo happens to be an expert in this field, which she is? Maybe she knows something. Maybe she doesn't. But there's just a chance she may know a different antibiotic or a different treatment. So, and of course, in Herbie's case, God rest his soul, they didn't spot the neuroendocrine quickly enough, and they should have been talking to some other doctors who treated him, but they didn't want to do it. We couldn't get a neuroendocrine specialist in until he was literally on his deathbed. So the reason I'm raising it is because if you find yourself in a situation where you're in a different medical environment to where you normally are with your normal doctors, and if you're aware enough to do it, which you may not be, try and insist or have your family insist that this doctor talks with your quarterback doctor. I think it's so important. because it ain't going to happen out of protocol, because that doesn't seem to be the protocol anymore. I hate to say it, and it's very bothersome. And, you know, one of these opportunities I'll get to one of the doctors we're close to, like Dr. E or Dr. Munster or some of these other docs that we know well, or Dr. Rahul, and ask them, what is going on? Why don't doctors talk to each other anymore? Because the only person who suffers when doctors don't talk to each other anymore is the patient. And I'm very sad about losing two good buddies because the doctors didn't talk to each other. Now, I'm not saying Al would have lived. He was septic, he had an infection, probably nothing was going to save him, but you don't know. We didn't cover every base, and that's what bothers me. So I wanted to get that off my chest. I wanted to say it, and if anybody has any comments, happy to listen to them. But I want to make you your best advocate and make sure this doesn't happen to any of you or any other AnCan.
I'd like to.
Go ahead.
I'd like to follow up on that, Rick. I think the beauty, as others have indicated on the group here, is what we all gain and glean from the expertise. But I've noticed that the medical world is a business. It's getting more so every day. So, as Jim Marshall and yourself had indicated, you got to be your own advocate, almost push it to the extreme sometimes. But the beauty of being an advocate is this group that you can go to gain more information. Thank you.
You know, if I can go back a few years, many years in time, my medical days, you know, it was so uncomplicated, you know, compared to today. Everything is overwhelming today in terms of HIPAA regulations, having to write everything down, having to make sure everything is coded a certain way, and sure, they have staff to help them, that they're more concerned. I watch my own doctors, most of them, not all of them, there are exceptions, you know, make sure every dot and every T is crossed and everything. And they're so concerned about that, they forget about the patient. The patient gets lost in the shuffle. And in the old days when John and I trained, you know, we were trained, you know, yes, you have to reach up, but we're also psychiatrists. Psychiatrists are trained much more differently, much more sensitively to the needs of the patients, in contrast to surgeons, for example, quick to go, in and out, let's go, next. So a lot of, there are some doctors that are very similar to psychiatrists, and there are people who are willing to let their schedule go until 8 o'clock at night. And, you know, because they take their time and they're more individualized. But most doctors today are overwhelmed with patients. They have to follow the rules. They don't, they're burned out, half burned out, totally burned out, and they're just going through the motions all day. And they have really no time to make that phone call. And it's pathetic and it's sad and the whole thing. And I don't know, I feel helpless and I have to stay on top of my doctor to dictate things correctly because he starts talking about somebody, it's not even me. I'm sitting there saying, no, that not. Oh, okay. He forgets. You know, it's like he's taking medication and his brain, he's having brain fog, and maybe he's getting too old and shouldn't be practicing. But the fact of the matter is, they are all burned out. I went to see a doctor at Bascom Palmer. He had so many patients on his schedule. I said, how do you do it? He said, I don't know. I don't know how I do it. It's overwhelming. And it's a different ballgame. I know. I feel terrible, Rick, that you know, what Herb went through and your friend went through and so many other people are going through. But I think a lot of it is a product of what's going on in the world today medically and lots of other things about doctors. It's not as much of a caring, loving, individualized profession as it once was.
Right.
With exceptions.
Thanks, Chad.
Yeah.
Well, just to follow up on that in a positive note, with my oncologist Thursday, the first time I met her, she was quite standoffish. And the more information I brought this time, she was thanking me as I was describing the information I get from this group, and we can compare each other to ourselves now and what information we're taking back. And I think it was a relief to her that all the onus was not on her to make a decision. Me as a patient was coming and pushing her, and I think she appreciated that. Not all doctors are going to do that, though.
Right.
Well, guys, I'm sure we'll come back to this at a time. This problem is going to get worse long before it gets better, as Dr. Jack has correctly said. And it's getting late, and people are dropping off, and everybody's wishing everybody else happy Thanksgiving. So, Ben, I think we'll we're always open to discuss this. If you have any issues in terms of doctor communication, doctor-patient communication, please bring them to the group. We're always happy to discuss them. And I wish you and yours and everybody who's going to listen into this a very happy Thanksgiving. And we at AnCan are really grateful for all of you making AnCan what it is, because we need you as much as you need us. Thank you.
Ditto.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a
Thank you,
good
everyone.
Thanksgiving.
Thanks.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody.